So I was living in Taiwan, but living in China as well, so I was going back and forth.
Oh, okay. What brought you to China?
I was working for a zipper factory there as a COO, and for a while working there inside of a factory. I saw the real part of China, came back to Taiwan, my fever was insane, to really go to a real hospital, and the doctor said, Kyle, if you didn't come back in 8 hours, you'd be dead.
So you've been in Taiwan for 13 years?
Yeah, and I've never been back to Canada. 我是台湾人. I do consider myself Taiwanese, and I will live here until the day I die.
Cole Fogel here, and today I am with, I'll just let you introduce yourself.
My name is Kyle McDonald.
Where are you from originally?
So, like yourself, I'm from Canada, but I'm from the East Coast.
Not Prince Edward Island.
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia, close.
It's a peninsula, so it's on the east coast of Canada, and it's part of the maritime provinces. So if you're familiar with the Titanic movie or the event, the people from my hometown went to rescue those people, and a lot of those people settled in my hometown because they were en route to go to New York and start a new life there, but they figured that my hometown treated them so well that they wanted to settle there. The other big thing that came out of my hometown, there's a few actually, is the Halifax explosion. So that was the world's largest explosion in human history before the atomic bomb.
When was that?
1917.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so 2 ships collided in the harbor, destroyed 3 cities around it. Then there was a shock wave that went for tens of kilometers around.
The shock wave was caused just from the ships hitting each other, or was there something on the ships that caused it?
One ship was carrying caustic chemicals, very corrosive,
God. Yeah.
and the other ship was carrying TNT.
Okay, so...
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and what's the first thing that happens when you hear such a big explosion outside your house? Go to your window. So they went to the windows, the glass blew in, and immediately we had the world's largest group of blind people that the world has ever seen. So we created...
Interesting.
Yeah, so in 1918, in March the following year, we created what's called the Canadian National Institute of the Blind. Growing up where I did in Nova Scotia, I mean, in a park like this, the road behind us there, after 5 p.m. you wouldn't be able to see that far because it's just covered in fog.
Oh, interesting.
And it rains every day.
Rainy, foggy Nova Scotia.
Yep,
okay.
Yeah, and you can't use an umbrella because the wind is too strong. It'll break your umbrella, so you deal with it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but because of that, a lot of people have seasonal depression. Nova Scotia is pretty famous for pirates as well. Like we have the home of the Blue Nose, which is on the Canadian dime.
Oh yeah, the Canadian.
Right. So Nova Scotians, you can call us Blue Nosers because we would go out to sea and we'd get really cold and our nose would turn blue.
When you think of Canada, and I think people watching would agree, you don't think of pirates.
Right. Yeah, but we have
a history of pirates.
We do. Yeah, that's right. It said on George's Island we used to hang the pirates there. We have a big citadel on top of a hill called Citadel Hill, which would have guns aimed at the harbor, ready for pirates at any time. The Maritimes is that it has a connection to Al Capone, actually. So Prince Edward Island, which you had just mentioned a little bit earlier, a lot of the houses there are built using the whiskey crates from Al Capone because he would send the whiskey up the coast into Prince Edward Island.
You're talking when people couldn't drink.
That's
like
right,
the
prohibition time. Yeah,
oh,
prohibition.
interesting.
Yeah, he would undock the crates and then put it in a false bottom boat and send it back down to the United States. The wood would stay on the beach, and people, scavengers, would use that to build their houses and stuff. So.
Are you a history buff? Because I mean, the way you're talking, like, it sounds like you could have been a history teacher.
Yes, I wanted to be Indiana Jones growing up as a kid.
Okay, I knew we had something in common.
Yeah, so I did go to university for like ancient history, Canadian history, and I read a lot. I spent a lot of time in the library.
Cool.
And I used to raise money for myself because my parents didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't have any, of course. So I used to scavenge trash as a kid, and I came across a church one time that had big black garbage bags full of every National Geographic from 1886 to 1994.
And they were just going to throw it away?
Yeah, so I took them all home.
So you said you have First Nation background.
Right.
Which would be like similar to those that don't know what that is to being a Aboriginal in Taiwan.
Mm-hmm. On my father's side, we're Métis, so they have my color hair, which is like sandy blonde brown, and my color eyes, which would be like green, blue, gray, and actually speak French as well on that side.
Oh, okay.
But my mom's side is Mi'kmaq, so we have dark color eyes, and my mom had pitch black hair also. Growing up as a kid, I had 390 brothers and sisters. My family, they did what we call small options. If you're familiar with the term like foster care, for example.
Of course, yeah.
So we did foster care, respite, and small options.
Oh, they took care of different, like, kids.
So my family is more peculiar because we would take care of the most at-risk or disadvantaged or troubled or severe disability children. So kids that came from broken homes, kids that even had a fire in the house that had no place to put them.
You grew up with these kind of kids?
Yeah, yeah. And they also did other work at the same time. Like I also lived part of my life in a funeral home. So my dad was the driver for a hearse. So if you die, my dad would be the guy that drives the hearse to take your body to our house where people would wash you, give you change of clothes, do your makeup.
Were you around the carcasses, the dead bodies?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was normal for you?
Yeah, yes. And I found that dead people are very good listeners. They don't talk back and they keep all your secrets.
Hey, hold on a second. Did living in that environment, have you made more peace with the concept of death?
Well, I've never seen a ghost, so I don't believe in ghosts at all. And I think the concept of death for me is more, yeah, I would say it's peaceful, but also like, it's like another step to a new journey.
I feel that way too.
Yeah. I've had kids and things that have passed away in my home, so it was my job to get some of these kids up and get them showered or help them with their wheelchair in the morning and things like that. And I go in, unfortunately, I find they passed away. So I've been through a lot as a kid. Yeah, I changed to an adult, I would say, from a very young age.
Taiwan, the first place you lived in Asia, actually lived?
So I lived in China for a little while as well. I lived in Jiangsu.
What brought you to China? Like, why did you choose to live there as opposed to visiting?
I was working for a zipper factory there as a COO and / CTO, and we had a few thousand employees there. So I lived there for a while, working there inside of a factory. I saw the real part of China, so I would say that China, they've got what I refer to as like postcard cities. Postcard cities would be like your Qingdao, Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, Guangdong, Ningpo, those big places like you would see on a postcard. And they're beautiful metropolises and things like that. But I lived in the real China, and I would drive my scooter around town, and I saw landfills where there would be a literal ocean of people living under blankets with 4 sticks holding it up. I live in the real China, so I get to see that side.
That's tragic.
Where people have never seen a foreigner ever in person. So I remember one time I was at a cafe and I heard a lady like maybe 1.5 kilometers down scream and go, "Whoa, Wagwan, how swai!" Which means like foreigner, how handsome. And I looked through the window just
oh my God, the whole town was
after
you?
The whole town's there.
You were a famous celebrity.
The whole town, it was crazy.
Did you like that feeling or was it overwhelming?
It was pretty overwhelming at first, especially since I was so new to Asia at the time.
Were you speaking the language at this point?
Absolutely not.
How long did you live in that environment?
Actually not long, because I got a stomach parasite that almost killed me, and I went to 2 hospitals.
A dangerous parasite?
A dangerous parasite,
What do you think caused it? From food or?
Yeah. Where I lived, food there is grown with human feces, was reported to me.
Oh, shit.
So
you mean they use it as fertilizer?
Yep. Yeah, so I went to 2 hospitals there, and it was horrific. That was a whole other story.
Could you have died? Are we talking serious?
Yeah. So I ended up getting really more sick. They gave me yogurt pills.
Oh yeah,
and I
probiotics.
Got on, and I got on a plane, and I came back to Taiwan. My fever was insane. I was fading. So I was traveling. I was living in Taiwan, but living in China as well. So I was going back and forth to really go to a real hospital. And the doctor said, "Kyle, at your bacteria count inside of your body, it's 5,000% what it should be. And if you didn't come back in 8 hours, you'd be dead."
They saved your life?
They saved my life, yeah.
Okay, so when you recover from that, did you go back to China?
No, I said, no, that's it. I'm going to settle in
The food would have freaked me out at that point.
I went to university, like I said earlier, for ancient history and Canadian history.
Yeah.
And my professor at the time, he said, what do you want to do with this? What's your purpose of studying? I said, well, I want to be Indiana Jones. I want to be an archaeologist. And he said, listen, Kyle, I hate to break your heart, but you're just going to end up as a professor in the university like me, and there's no jobs for Indiana Jones anymore. And I said, nope, I do not want to be a teacher. Nope, that's the last thing I ever want to do. And here I am in Taiwan now. I've been a teacher for 13 years now.
So you've been in Taiwan for 13 years?
Yeah, and I've never been back to Canada.
Literally?
Literally, never, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I've been here the whole time.
What?
Yeah. Washi Taiwan lang.
The last 13 years of your life, you have physically lived here.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like 11 years in Taipei and then 2 years in Kaohsiung here.
Do you have a favorite city of those two places, if you were to be completely sincere?
我最爱高雄，因为我觉得台北人很冷淡。我跟高雄的老板朋友们有说，台北人就是如果你没有钱，你没有朋友；高雄你没有朋友，你没有钱。So in English, that would be like I spoke with my business owner friends who live here in Kaohsiung, and we agree that in Taipei, if you have no money, you have no friends. But in Kaohsiung, if you have no friends, you have no money.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Some of my best friends in the world are First Nations people here in this country. Shout out to the Saixiaju.
Where are they from? Taidong
They're
or
near
Pindong?
Hsinchu, up near Neiwan in the mountains, deep in there. And so we've got a farm together up there as well.
Cool.
And I've grown really close with them through the years. My goddaughter Lucy, look her up on YouTube Music. She's a very famous music star here now. You can type in Lucy Taiwan, she'll come up. Shout out
Taiwan.
to Lucy.
Okay. Hi,
Love
Lucy.
you. Lucy, her father, he's a Kiwi from New Zealand. And we clicked when I first moved to Taiwan. Her dad, actually, I saved his life. We grew closer from that. We were exploring an old abandoned insane asylum.
In Taiwan?
In Taiwan, yep. Inside, all of the notebooks and things were still there. There was even playing cards that somebody had just set down. Whoa. We saw brains in jars and things.
Eerie.
There's a crematorium inside. And we found a stairwell that went down to an abandoned train tunnel, actually. 7 floors underground. So my friend there, he decided to hop on this little cart that was on these train tracks. And he's like, hey,
doesn't sound like a good idea. You don't know what's inside there.
Right, exactly. So I was like, this is a terrible idea. Don't do that.
So he went in there and then?
Disappears into the tunnel. Boom, 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 boom. And then I heard, smash! And I yelled down, are you okay, okay, okay? Nothing, right? Are you okay, okay? Nothing. And then I heard, no, I'm not okay.
Oh my God.
Help me. So I started running down and I ran a long way.
And you don't even know where you're running.
No idea. So I get down to the end and I see on the side, on the right-hand side, there's this cart smashed. And then on the left, my friend is in this little ditch. So I said, okay, I need to assess the damage here, what's going on here. And he said, my leg is really, really bad.
Oh my God.
So I picked up his leg and the whole shin is just jelly.
Oh.
And so I said, okay. There's no cell phone reception.
So he broke his leg?
Shattered it.
Oh
totally shattered it. So I said, listen, you need to trust me. I'm going to get you home to your family or somewhere safe at least. So I picked him up, I put him on my back, and I carried him all the way out. And then I carried him up the 7 flights of stairs through the insane asylum, and it was raining outside. Carried him and then down the road to a hospital.
Well, this place was in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it was
remote.
Far enough.
How long did it take, would you say, from the accident site?
A couple hours. He ended up getting severe infections, couldn't walk for 3 years, had 18 surgeries, crazy.
He kept his leg though?
Yeah.
Luckily
he did, yeah. And there was points where he was like, just cut it off, just amputate it. And the doctors in Taiwan are just absolutely amazing. And they said,
we do have great medical
no, we're going to try to keep your leg if we can.
Yeah.
And he can walk now. Yeah, he's good. So I've kind of earned the name Batman from that, actually. And I've actually had a couple other circumstances where I've actually helped people here in Taiwan as well. So I was in Taidong, actually, which is on the East Coast, southern Taiwan. And it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I was bicycling with a co-worker of mine, a good friend. He lives in Canada, he's Canadian. He lives in Canada now, he moved back since. But it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I heard in Chinese, 救命啊, 救命啊, which is like, help me, right? And my friend didn't understand Chinese. This time my Chinese is much better. So then I bicycled towards the sound and I found an old grandma and her car was actually teetering on a cliff. So I managed to get her car back, pull grandma out, got the car back actually, and I drove her home. And so there's a few circumstances, so people were like, whoa, you really are like Taiwan back.
I didn't think it was possible for you to give me the kind of shivers I'm getting like 3 times now.
I actually did what's called the Huandao.
Yeah?
So that's, I bicycled around Taiwan. We started in Taipei and Danshui. Then we went to Pinning, which is south of Taipei. We went to Yilan, Suao, Hualien, Taidong, Kaohsiung, and Kending in 3 days.
Bro.
We got there in Kending on the beach, day 3.
Oh, wow.
And my friend and I were dirty. We're sunburnt. People are walking by us like, look at these stinky
Like
guys.
you were homeless. You looked homeless.
Who are these losers? And we're like, you have no idea how we got here. So just back off.
Is there anything you can't get used to about Taiwan after 13 years?
This dirty word called tradition. A lot of people get stuck into not adapting to some new ideas that would really benefit society as a whole.
Yeah.
In most situations here, people are forced to fit into defined roles within a relationship. So women are expected get married, have kids within the first year.
Yeah.
Men are the workaholics, and I find that people really struggle with that. So the economy here, if you take a look at the gross GDP, right, how much people make is usually about 34,000 NT a month.
Like on average, yeah.
On average, right? So like $1,200 I would say US, right? Something like that. You would say, well, that's not very much to live on. And to be honest, folks, it's not.
It's not. That's why a lot of them,
in Taiwan here, that's not a lot of money.
Isn't that why families all kind of live together?
That's where I'm going. You got it. So what happens is you've got grandma and
3
grandpa,
generations,
auntie and uncle sometimes even, and then the newlywed couple with the new kids coming or already, and then dogs and cats all living under one roof, contributing to each other. And there is even a rule here. I'm not sure you're familiar with this or not, but there's a law here about parental abandonment. So that means when your folks get old and you're Taiwanese, you need to send them money or they could actually sue you.
Wow.
And it does happen. It is common here that does happen.
Yeah.
And so in that case, you are forced to adhere to this situation. So let's put this into perspective. Let's say you come from a broken home.
Yeah, it's not good.
You have a very terrible relationship with your family.
Yeah.
But you're expected to have to contribute.
Yeah.
So
that would be an example of some traditional laws, it sounds like, that they have in place.
So now, okay, let's go back to the dating scene, for example. Let's say you're a female, you come in and fall in love with a Taiwanese guy, for example, and now you're expected, you have to move into
his parents' place,
live with his family, live under their rules and their perspective of how you should live your life, and that can suck.
So it's either
if you're with a cool family,
then it's beautiful.
That's beautiful. But you need to think. Let's look at the world, folks.
Yeah.
Across the world, let's look at these 8 billion people. How many people really love their in-laws that much?
It's pretty low percentage.
Very low percentage, right?
Yeah.
Now you've got a traditional perspective where you are forced to adhere to rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be a struggle. It can be a big struggle.
Yeah, like it is a real thing.
There is a new generation of people
changing a bit.
Who are trying to change that. They're trying to change that.
I meet couples who do live on their own that don't live with the parents.
For sure. Yeah, there is.
Taiwan is getting modern in many ways, but you're right, that is something that maybe is slower in progress.
Well, I spoke to a woman recently, this Taiwanese woman. She's a model in France, in fact. And she's from Kaohsiung, her family is still here. And she said that she came back to Taiwan to visit twice now. The first time she felt very inspired, she said. When she came back, she felt like, wow, I need to move back. And recently she came back and she's like, the feeling's totally gone. I feel like nothing has changed and I don't want to be subject to fitting into the working situations here. People work huge hours here for very little money.
Yeah.
I knew a girl in Taipei. She said she worked for a tourism agency and they would have a meeting and if you didn't meet their salesman, they would call you a pig. Like, are you a pig?
Wow.
You're just a bunch of useless pigs. Like, that doesn't fly where we come from.
Sounds like the things that you can't get used to, they don't necessarily directly affect you, but being someone who's gotten to know locals here, you can see how it's affecting the local people.
With living in Taiwan as well, is that you really get used to people coming and going out of your life.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people come in from other countries, but they choose not to settle here.
Yeah.
And they leave, or if things don't go right, they get divorced, and they also find a culture clash, or they just don't feel like they fit in properly, and then they're gone. So people that you really feel like, oh, I'm gonna be friends with this person the rest of my life, then you literally wake up the next morning and they're gone.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly. So unfortunately, I lost really good friends.
Yeah.
I do consider myself Taiwanese here, and I will live here until the day I die. I've grown myself deep roots in this country, and I love it dearly. It's my home, and I consider myself Taiwanese, but I've been in a situation where somebody in the background hears me have a conversation about I consider myself Taiwanese, and they'll really walk up to me and they go, do you have a Taiwanese ID? Yeah. And then I go, well, I've got my residence card, and so then you're not Taiwanese. Like, for me, I've never been back to Canada. I don't see myself ever returning back to Canada.
That's...
To gain citizenship here right now, I would need to throw away my Canadian passport.
Yeah.
Before I get citizenship. Effectively, I'm a nomad.
Yeah.
Because I have no citizenship.
I have a friend who did that before.
I'm at risk of not obtaining citizenship, and then I have no citizenship. And my group of friends, like, they often say, Kyle, you're more Taiwanese than me. You know the best places to go to. You've been to places in Taiwan I've never dreamed of.
Do you feel like you stay younger living here? Some people think of this island as foreigners that live here age slower than, let's say, that of my friends that live in Canada. At least for myself, I feel more youthful living here than I would if I lived in Canada.
Well, I would say, like, they suffer seasonal depression. I mean, it's really bad.
When I lived there, I did.
It's really, really bad.
I get sunshine all year round here.
Crippling, right? The local Taiwanese people would say I'm crazy for going to the beach in February, but for me, that's... Baby, that's easy, because where I grew up in the Atlantic Ocean, you go in for 5 seconds, you come out, you're blue in July.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, the water's a temperate, like 20 some odd degrees.
Oh, the water's never that cold here. You can go in the ocean all year round here.
All
year round. If anything, I would enjoy that it's slightly colder.
Yeah, I like to go, to go to the beach on a rainy day is great, because you don't get cooked by the sun. Another beautiful thing is the hot springs here are wonderful.
Fantastic,
So you just chill out there. On a rainy day is perfect. So one of the reasons that brought me to Kaohsiung is the beach is 10 minutes from my house.
Oh,
the mountains full of monkeys are 10 minutes from my house.
I like it. All right, final thing, because you've got to go, and I feel like we could talk for 5 hours, but what was your dog's name?
Her name was Sol. She was a Doberman Pinscher. She was a red one, so a little bit more rare. She was a beautiful dog, but when I got her, she was a wild animal.
Oh, yeah.
So the problem was that these animals need a lot of exercise, and they're typically guard dogs as well, or they're service dogs, we could call them like that. So these people that had her, unfortunately, they just didn't know how to have a dog, first of all, let alone this very specialized dog. And they gave her to an auntie in Taoyuan. And this dog, I mean, she was close to 100 pounds. So she would walk her down the road, right? She was walking her down the road, and the dog pulled her. She fell down, hurt her hip, and she's like, I can't have this dog either.
I'm done with this.
I found this dog on Facebook because I was looking for a pet, for a Doberman particularly.
Oh, cool.
And I was in a Doberman group on Facebook, and I saw this beautiful dog, and I didn't even read the Chinese on it. I said, that's my dog.
Oh, I love that.
And then I read through it, and it was like, free to a good home. And I said, wow, looky, looky.
A free dog sounds great.
I went to this lady's house. Her couch was completely obliterated.
By the dog?
The dog's screaming, running around the house, barking, jumping up.
And you're like, I love you.
And I was like, you're mine. We're going to do this. And she came over to me, and she started licking my hands. She just turned into such a beautiful, loving dog.
She mellowed out?
Oh, man, she had the greatest personality. She was super cool and great around kids, too. And she wasn't before. And then moved down here to Kaohsiung, moved into a new house down here as well. And then she started to get really, really sick. And I brought her to the vet. I had bought her all kinds of new food and things like that to try to nurse her back to health. She stopped eating was the big thing. One night I bought her really expensive food from the vet. She ate a bowl of it, and then she laid down in my bedroom, and it was 2:30 in the morning. And she threw up all of the food on the floor. But not only that, she terrified me to like the core of my soul, because she froze and her eyes rolled back in her head. So I rushed her to the emergency, the 24-hour emergency. And they said, I'm sorry, Kyle, your dog is very sick. Leave her with us for a few days and then we'll call you back. That was like, I left 9:30 a.m. And then I called in sick to work because I had been up all night, worried.
Of course.
And they called me back at 11:30 a.m., 2 hours later. They said, Kyle, you need to come back right away. I went back to the vet and they said, I said, where's my dog? What's wrong with my dog? They said, I'm sorry, Kyle. You need to say goodbye.
So hard.
So she had this very favorite song of hers. That was La Vie en Rose. And by Louis Armstrong, so trumpets. And when it would play, she would actually sing, she would howl in harmony with the trumpet music. So when she is laying in my arms, in her final moments, I played the music. And she went from having just comatose state to she raised her head, sung her final tune, and then she passed away in my arms, and that was it.
Oh, sorry, I'm feeling teary-eyed. I'm glad that she got to say good. I'm glad she got to leave this plane of existence in your arms.
That's right.
Like, although I also believe when we die, that death is not the end. I think we were talking about that off camera as well. But it doesn't matter. Even though I know it's not the end, deep down, it still hurts to not have them in our life in this reality.
That's right.
How many months ago? This is just recently.
Just the beginning of the year, January,
Well, I'm glad you had that time with Sol leading up to this. Like, I'm glad you had some good years, obviously, with her. And that you gave her a life that she would otherwise have not have had as well, which I think
and hopefully it's a new start for her.
Like, who knows?
Yeah.
She's a baby girl, a baby boy that just, like, got born, you know what I mean?
Could be.
Like,
who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been, I feel like we'll definitely have another video. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Catch you in the next one. Goodbye, neighbor.